Oh man, that was quick. We are on. What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic Thursday evening. It is once again pouring down rain in beautiful Houston, Texas. I'm sure we're going to have more trees get knocked down and streets getting flooded and whatever else is going to happen this time around. I can tell you the first run of LSX Jimmy. What is up, my brother? The last run of storms that blew through here, man, we had trees getting blown down all over the place. Looks like the whole place was basically hit by a freaking tornado. So we'll see what happens this time. Pretty much any time water falls out of the sky, panic ensues and chicks start screaming and yelling. So Canada guys checking in. Hey man, Dr. Div saying, B Mason, my man, how are you tonight? Doing well. So typically I'll kick off things with what's going on with the car, and this isn't going to be any real different, anything really any different. So TBD pulleys are on the way, as well as a thermostat repositioner contraption for this thing. Basically, what I'm in the process of doing is swapping out the idler pulleys and swapping out that tensioner pulley with some lighter weight components, something that looks a little bit better, but primarily it's a lighter weight component. In total, you save about, I don't know, right at 4 pounds, but it's all rotating mass. Your contribution dollars at work. So that stuff has shipped. It's on the way, probably get here next week. Over the weekend, I will start, pulling the pulleys off of this thing, getting it ready. There are 2 idlers and 1 tensioner. And again, in total, you're looking at a savings of about 3.7 pounds. And that's 3.7 pounds that you've got to spend up to about 14,000 RPM. So certainly not a small amount of rotational and kind of twofold idlers, and then the tensioner pulley is the stock size. To give you guys an idea, the bearings, by the way, it's an upgraded set of bearings that I work with TBD on, and looks like they may end up being the set of bearings that they go with these pulleys moving forward. They're rated to 18,000 RPM as opposed to the normal 12,000 RPM that you'll see with like the set of Metcos or something like that. The stock pulley and the stock tensioner, those bearings are rated to 11,000 RPM, which is funny because they don't actually meet the actual RPM rating that those pulleys will actually spin to. I'm sure there's some overrun in those bearing ratings, but in this case I picked a set of bearings that were going to more than cover what this car is going to spin those pulleys to, even with potentially upgraded pulleys down the road, or if I just want to leave stock pulley ratio, I know I've got a safe set of bearings in the car. Really good working with Todd over there at TBD, by the way. Let me say hey to everybody real quick, then we'll kind of move into some other stuff. Fast Man, hey, what's up, man? LSX, the rain is great for the auto collision world. I know you're loving it right now, brother, especially this time of year should start getting pretty good, I bet. Mopar Man saying, hey, B Mason, LSX Jimmy saying you're changing out the wrong pulleys. We're getting to that, brother, believe me. Mopar Man saying, finally back, man, I like it. Say, I used to love when I was busy. Damn, you and Race X. Yeah, I know, right? Let's see, Dr. Diff, wish my internals would get here. Didn't ship out into the 16th. Balanced and pin kit, shipped tomorrow. You find a piece of that thermostat, I'd assume you do it when you do the pulleys. Yep. Looks like that one might be going in the car. So, but it's going to require a tune. A 160 is going to require a tune, but a 180 will not. In fact, 160 will absolutely piss off a Hellcat without any tuning that's been done to it, but the 180 is good to go. When the car gets tuned, it will get the 160. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. But anyway, getting back to this thing, yeah, it's kind of funny changing out the wrong pulleys. We're getting there. We're getting there. So baby steps, though. Again, it's a grand total of about coming up on 4 pounds, a little over 3.5 pounds worth of rotating mass. You might think, well, how much power does it take to actually spin those things up to, say, the 13, 14,000 RPM? Actually, it's a little over 14. It's 14,500 RPM on the big end. It's Actually, surprisingly little. There is actually a calculation that you can run the numbers and find out exactly how much torque or horsepower you're going to gain, or what have you. In my case, I'm doing this really for two reasons: one, durability, and two, for the look of it, because these pulleys look like ass. These stock steel pulleys just look terrible after a while. But again, having the peace of mind of not only the bearings, but just having less that inertial load on the belt between shifts at wide open throttle, a bit of a peace of mind thing for me. But in terms of the numbers, I was able to find the formula, and after running the numbers, it's going to save about 6 to 7 horsepower at peak RPM, but it's an average amount of power. So on the launch, it's going to save more because I've got to take that pulley and accelerate it up to 14,000 RPM. Then once the car shifts, I'm accelerating it from like 10,000 RPM to 14,000 RPM. So obviously there's not as much force as it's going to take in that amount of time. And basically you're trying to accelerate that mass and that diameter for periods of about, say, half a second in half a second intervals. So depending on how you play with the numbers and actual timing that it takes to accelerate the gear, or I'm sorry, accelerate through the gear and to ramp up those pulleys, again, you're looking at around 6 to 7 horsepower in total that you can look to save, and it's a grand total of about 5 to 7 pound-feet of torque. So it's not a lot. I mean, it's insignificant in terms of actually picking up any power, but for you guys that were wondering, that's basically what you would pick up with that setup. But again, I don't want to overstate, this thing picking up any power with this. Again, it's just more of a durability mod, and basically just peace of mind on my end, and it just looks better too. Let's see. Dr. Joe saying mine levels out at 185 with the 160 in it. Yeah, these actually, they'll cool off quite a bit on the freeway, and that's when it'll start to get pissed. Oh shit, LSX Jimmy saying my brother had an 01 Cobra Day, found one with 17,000 original miles. What's the best way, in the professor's opinion, for me to convince him to LS swap it and actually go fast? Yeah, I don't think that that's really an option for that. Although I will say this, 01 Cobra with the right internals and a Kenny Bell setup is pretty sick. So just get ready to spend a lot of money. Let's see. Actually, you know what? They're not too bad to make fast. 01 Cobra supercharged 4.6, right? Actually, no, the 01 is not supercharged. 01, actually an interesting car. It's a 320 horse 4-valve, but you can throw superchargers on them, and everything will still work. It's a little bit of money. What I do remember is guys were turboing those cars. So I would say if it were me, Kenny Bell would be good, but turbo might be a good way to go. Let's see, Jean-Paul's asking, hi Brian, 2009 RT 6-speed, Magnuson, 8 pounds of boost, shorty JBA headers, 85mm throttle body stock, 5.7, I am using internet tune. Any idea what kind of horsepower I'll be making at the rear wheels? Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, internet tune, it depends on who tuned it. I can tell you that exact combination on the Mustang dyno over at Pikes Performance is a known, and this is a 6-speed manual car also. That car, it was a solid 430 and 430 to the rear wheels. So that gives you the indication. But when that car came in, it was only making about 400 to the rear wheels. The tune on that thing was real soft. So which you would expect out of a factory tune. Your internet tune might have a little bit more in it, but I don't know how safe it would be because it's an internet tune. But anyway, hopefully that answers your question. Curtis Sims saying, guys, hit that like button. Yes, please do. Like, subscribe, share, smash that bell thing, whatever you want to do. Get it out there into the interwebs. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Div saying if he does swap engines, my service manager would buy that supercharger. Yep, doesn't have one on that one. Doc Div, oh ouch. Yeah, swap it. At that point, you just almost wonder if it's even worth it to play with that 320. I mean, again, I know they love them some turbos, so I mean, you can always kind of start looking into that route. But you know, you still have powdered metal rods, and I don't know. They're adorable little cars to drive, and they're a lot of fun. I will say this: with a tune, long tubes, no cats, but with 430 gears and a proper drag pack. Oh, and a shifter. Please get a shifter because the shift forks, they're aluminum, but they still crack. Anyway, a lot of fun to drive. Let's see. Jean Paul saying also put it on a diet drag pack wheels like your passenger seat and rear seat delete spare tire and jack out. Took the scales and came in at 38.66 without me in it. I like that. Nice and lightweight. That'll be a fun car. Black and White Charlie's asking, hey, B. Mason, what do you recommend for a 5.7 Challenger Pennzoil Ultra Platinum or Amsoil Signature Series? Flip the coin, brother, it doesn't matter. As long as you're changing the oil regularly, it really doesn't matter. And to be honest with you, if you can get your hands on the Pennzoil Ultra locally, I would say go that route. However, if you've got to start ordering this stuff up, go with the Amsoil. In terms of performance, the real world though, they both do very well. Pennzoil is a very, very high performing oil. Better than Mobil 1, but just better. And Amsoil I would consider to be better than Pennzoil, but just a little bit better. But again, you're splitting hairs at this point. Go with whatever you can get locally. And again, if you've got to have something shipped in, or if you don't have an Amsoil dealer that's somewhat local to you, if you've got to ship it, go with the Amsoil. Let's see. CJ saying, get in to B. Mason. What's up, brother? What's up, man? Need to check that out. Oh, LSX checking back in saying Pop's Hellcat should be finished back up tomorrow. Here's to hoping the new bypass valve solves the limp home mode. Damn you, Whipple. Yeah, no kidding, man. God, if we only knew. You know, the problem with the Whipple is that it does a lot of great things very well, but man, it's tough to beat the IHI style superchargers on these things, and for whatever reason, the computer just goes into freak out mode with that Whipple. You can tune around it. There are some things you can do to try to mitigate that a little bit, but I don't know. And then bypass valves freaking out and everything. It just, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's the higher flow rate freaking out the actual hysteresis of the motor or whatever, but there's something going for the bypass valve. There's something that's going on in there that just pisses it on royally. Oh man, hold on, timeout. Mopar man, thank you very much. I appreciate that. $40 donation to Project Revlon, man. I do so much humbly appreciate that. Saying, for you and Revlon, it's been 3 lives I've missed. It's killing me. I figure your Diet Coke supply may have run low, and Revlon's oil supply too. I shouldn't have strayed. I should have stayed one only. Didn't miss any. Uh-oh. Man, no, you're good. I appreciate that so much. Thank you very much. No, Diet Coke fund is doing well. Sipping on a little Taco Bell iced tea this evening. But thank you very much. And yep, Revlon is coming up on an oil change here pretty soon. Sitting here looking at it like it's going to say something. But yeah, Revlon's doing pretty good. In fact, you know, hopefully if you guys have been keeping up with any of the little how-tos that I've been doing, I hope you guys again had fun with that inner fender project that we did real quick. Kind of a fun little project to keep that self-clearancing issue from going on. And again, before I forget, there was something left out of that video on the forward portion of the inner fender well. There is a part that from y'all's point of view can, in some cars, will just naturally kind of stick out a little bit. On D-cell, that can rub on the tires as well, or you know, with any suspension articulation, it can potentially rub. And all you got to do is just reach in there with your hand and just fold it back. It's got the consistency of like a manila folder. So you can just reach in there, crimp it with your hand. It'll actually tuck and roll it out of the way, and it's a done deal. You're done if that is happening with yours. It was happening with mine, and I honestly, guys, I didn't even notice it until I road tested it. And everything was great until I pulled into my driveway, and it had a little bit of a rub, and how the hell is anything rubbing? And so, you know, naturally, like any car guy, got the car back up, pulled the wheel off, and was sitting there staring at it, and sure enough, that's what it was. So again, that's a portion of that project that I left out. Dr. Div saying, Ed John Paul, get that thing over to Pikes and let him work his magic. It'll make the internet tune look like crap. Yeah, so for the ones that we see over at the shop, man, the reality is that the number one, the box tunes are not very good. Number two, the internet tunes, it's hard to say. I don't like saying that they're bad because they're not all bad. But the reality is that some of them suck, and it's just the way that it ends up working out. And so, yeah, it's always good to validate those tunes, if nothing else. And do it with somebody you can trust. I mean, there's solid tuners all over the place, but the reality is, you know, it definitely can pay dividends. Hit up one of the tuners and just say, look, if I throw you some bone, can you just take a look at this and make sure that it's legit? If you've got the software to work back and forth, it's worth it. If you don't, get the car to them and have them have a look at it. Dr. Diff's asking, any advice for Pops on a short throw shifter for his 2014 Challenger TR6060 car? I like the Barton shifters. So I would say Barton first, and if MGW makes anything, I would probably buy it. I am so biased towards MGW from my time with the Mustangs and with the Corvettes and with the Viper. Freaking MGW is awesome as far as I'm concerned. But take a look at those two. I think that's the direction I would go if it were my car. Let's see, Canada guy, would you recommend a cheap Hemi 300 or a Charger for your friend that wants a Mopar? Hell yeah, I would. Absolutely. Donald Power is saying, what's up, Mr. Mason? This is interesting. I like it, man. Thank you very much. Dr. Div saying, I love it. He loves his Amsoil. Saying, use nothing but that in my vehicles, including the hoopty. Now, well, I tell you what, that's, believe it or not, okay, so if, you can talk about race car shit all you want, but I will say this straight away. If Dr. Diff is recommend Amsoil, if y'all haven't seen the Hoop Ride, man, this thing is a general purpose, beater. Thing looks like it was drug out of the bay, but it still runs, gets him from point A to point B with no worries, no hassles, and no fret. So it's in cars like that have very high mileage, that are just general transportation appliances that get the hell beat out of them. Thing probably spends its entire life at wide open throttle and is still running. That's when those oils really shine. It's easy to talk about which oils are better, but when you're talking about race car stuff, because chances are you're being so anal retentive about oil changes that you're swapping out this stuff really before it even has any real need to be swapped out. That's what we do, especially when they're your baby, right? Well, if it's something you're going to hammer on, beat on, and just basically let it, any real, long-term maintenance slip, that's the one, those are the cars that I like to hear. And if he likes Amsoil, again, Amsoil's top of the list. Donald Power saying, and Mopar man saying that 4406 was a big, was my big eagle. I love any turbo Buick Regal. Love that stuff. Let's see. Mopar man's talking about, I have got to see your videos at least, but anything more than 30 minutes, forget it. Last month I averaged 19 and a half hours a day at the shop. This month still 17. Brother, man, get you some rest, please, man. We need you to stick around for a while. That's brutal, brother. Get you some help, my friend. Bring in the cavalry. Holy shit. But listen, man, I've been there. When I lived in Austin, I was running hours like that myself, man. And it is brutal, believe me. I know exactly what you're going through. Tracy's saying, hey Mason, just got a 2019 Hellcat Charger. Nice. What's the first thing I should do to it? Anything I should be concerned about? Well, let's unpackage that backwards. First, anything you should be concerned about? No, not at all. What's the first thing you should do to it? Change the oil. Let's see. So let's see, probably got it new, I'm guessing, if it's a 2019. Break-in. So follow break-in procedure to the letter. At 500 miles, change the oil. At 1,000 miles, change the oil. Then after that, follow the normal oil change procedure. That is what I've done with everything I've ever owned, and it has worked out swimmingly. Interestingly enough, this car, the one sitting behind me, this is actually kind of a funny story. And I haven't really talked about Revlon. The funny thing is that you guys have seen her at the track and all of that, but you haven't. The backstory on this car is actually fairly interesting. Believe it or not, the trunk of this car had never been opened when I got it. At least that's my estimation. I still have the original line sheets from this car, and the seal just kind of went when the thing was open. The guy that bought this car, I think what he did is he bought it, parked it in his garage, and then drove it maybe every other weekend on a really pretty day, and that was about the extent of the amount of driving this car ever got. Except for one thing. The guy religiously had the oil change every 6 months, regardless of the mileage. When he bought the car, he changed the oil. I think the first time the oil was changed was at 1,000 miles, and then from there on, it was at 1,000 miles. And then the car had like 2,600 miles on it. Then it had, the oil change was like at 3,200 miles on it. Pretty much every 6 months it was changed. So anyway, let me get those sheets for you real quick. Bear with me. You guys might get a kick out of this. Hang on. Anyway, so when these cars are going down the assembly line, these are the sheets of all the different options. And these were still stuck. In fact, the tape's right there. These were still stuck to the trunk liner in the car. So these are all the options on Revlon as she was kicking through the line. Anyway, born on the official born date, November 20th, 2014. So she's an early release. Red line red. Love this kind of stuff, man. I'm such a nerd when it comes to this. Anyway, I don't know if y'all can see that, snapshot that or whatever, but that's the entire build sheet on the car, and it was still, again, taped to the trunk liner, and it had never been disturbed. So kind of cool. I don't know how I got into that, talking about oil or changing or what to do. Oh, sorry, getting back to it. Sorry, Tracy, got a little bit off topic. Well, you know me, right? That's the first stuff I would do. And as far as modifications go, put you a set of Nitto Tri-5Rs on the back of that thing. Do yourself a favor. Aside from that, get the thing out there and enjoy it. Have fun. If you're going to take it to a drag strip, or you're going to be repeatedly taking the thing to a drag strip, get you a DSS drive shaft. Diff brace, I'm kind of on the fence. If you're not racing the car, don't sweat that. But aside from that, get the thing out, enjoy it, and about every, 2,500 or 3,000 miles, change the oil if you want to be real anal about it, and at the same time, swap out your air filter. That's it, man. Enjoy the fun that car will bring you. Oh, Dr. Diff saying, for your tuning comment, answering my comment, you know the internet tune I can't stand. Yo, yeah, believe me. You and me both on that guy. John Paul saying, okay, thanks for the info and the internet tune. I'll find a tuner. I highly suggest you do. Kevin Collins, hey, what do you think about the 93, 97 LT1 Camaros? I think they are not near as good as an LS1. I don't like the OptiSpark at all. And I would say that if I were given the option between LT1 and waiting and saving up and getting an LS1, I think you know where I'm going with that. I mean, you go LS1 every single time. LT1 was great. It's a fantastic swan song for the old school architecture for the small block, but it's not an LS1, and as if you've never worked on one of those cars before, never had to deal with the OptiSpark freaking out or anything like that, you just don't know what you're missing, and you're better off for not knowing. Let's see. Donald Power saying, Mopar man, the 4406 was my NHRA number, also at address. Nice. Mopar man saying, I agree with Dr. Diff. I've used it in my winter car, 318 Charger, and it has 327,235 miles. It's been a great car and has run on Amsoil the last 180,000 miles. See, I mean, you can't get better than that. Anytime you're using that stuff and you've got that kind of a track record, I mean, that speaks for itself. That's good info, too. 318 Charger, man. I'd turn that into a really fun car, by the way. Oh, E.T. Ray said, hey, be more car shows this weekend with Sean. Man, you guys shoot me some pictures of that. I think you didn't get a message that I sent over to you. I was like, yeah, shoot me some pictures, man. I love it. Mopar Man's checking in with Donald. Let's see. Shawnee, hey, B, can you give a quick explanation of the street Hemi versus the race Hemi in the mid to late 60s? How could you get a race Hemi back then? Crate engine or special ordered car? Thank you. Yeah, well, Mopar Man can actually speak on this probably a little bit better than me, but the race Hemi, the difference is, by the way, never mind. I'll get into. I'm going to save a thought here, but the big difference is the solid lifter cars, among other things, had well, the race Hemi would have been a solid lifter car, different camshaft with significantly different load profiles, the whole bit. Some came with twin 4-barrels. Others were. Well, the single 4-barrel was for some of the race applications, depending on what the application was for. But really the difference was in actual practice. You know, what would be the difference? A stock street Hemi was rated at 425 horse and was a legitimate gross 425 horsepower engine with an SAE rating of 390 horsepower. The solid lifter engine was rated at 425 horsepower, which was inaccurate to say the least. That engine was at least 5.25 horse. So again, it had more to do with it being a solid lifter engine, was able to run up to about 6,800 RPM reliably. And again, it just did different cam all the way around. And yes, you would have to order that separately, or you could order the parts from Mopar to get you where you needed to be. And if you had, hold please, or you could have this if you actually bought a super stock car. And in this package, this is an original document, by the way, so I got to be kind of careful with it. I don't want to tear it up. But I do want to show you something kind of neat, is that you could buy all the factory parts that you needed to have a super stock Dodge. And so you would have, or a solid lift engine. By the way, that's what that race Hemi would have looked like. Cool looking headers, by the way. Along with all kinds of different tech tips on how to back cut the intake for, for milling the heads, things like that. All information is actually in this booklet, oddly enough. And you've got an entire parts list with part numbers that would come with that for all of your replacement parts. And if you were building an engine, one of these engines out of a street Hemi, these would be the parts that you would buy to swap that over. Mopar Man saying, hey Sean. Shawnee's saying, hey Mopar Man, I got a bunch of pictures from last weekend's Mopar's in the park. Give me your email. Yeah, he went to a nice car show. Apparently there's a lot of cool looking stuff there. Let's see. Get this thing back in here. Hold please. Oh, Tracy's saying with his 2019, said, yep, had 5 miles on it when I got it. Yep, then follow that procedure and you'll be in good shape, man. Shawnee, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Saying, put this in your fund for rear, however. Yeah, so here's the thing, though. You know, Chris's car has the 309 gears, and we were able to run the cars neck and neck. Now, his car does weigh Kentucky windage, about 180 pounds more than my car, close to 200 pounds. Realistically, we were running identical numbers, and they were worth about a tenth and a half reliably, maybe even 2/10 on his car. And again, at this power level, it certainly is a pretty solid gain for his car. And here's the cool thing. So granted, the DA sucked. It was like 2,200 feet. Best DA of the day was like 2,000 feet, but it was muggy and, Southeast Texas, right? But his car was going through the traps at, I think, 5,600 RPM, 5,800 RPM. So right there at the top of fifth gear, he's going through the traps, which is perfect. These cars in really low DA, I have a feeling the car would shift just a little bit before the end of the track, or, not the end of the track, but the end of the traps, or into the before. With a lower DA, but still, you're talking mile an hour. He probably up mile an hour at about $130 with that car, and it weighs more than mine. So again, solid upgrade for sure. But thank you very much, man. I truly appreciate that. Let's see. Dog Power saying back in 84 ET numbers for Dixon, Texas, 69 Roadrunner to a best 1069 at 125. The one that got away. Freaking love B-body Mopars. Mopar man saying race Hemi, track Hemi, or street. Heads and solid lifter and cam. Absolutely. Single fours and quads. 550 horse for the race Hemi. Absolutely. He's saying B Mason explained it well as always. That's one of those things where, and that's the other thing, talking about the Gen 2s, I appreciate that, brother, by the way. Oh, damn, Dr. Diff checking in. Saying, still need me one of those Mopar Live shirts. It's going out tomorrow. All shipping is going out tomorrow. So putting some in for shipping. Got to wear it to the YSP Day this weekend. Actually, it will be going out tomorrow. So yeah, I've been a little bit slack. I've been getting hammered at the day job here lately, man. It's been driving me nuts. I haven't been able to get over to the post office. But be on the lookout. I believe I still have your address, so we'll get it to you, brother. But I did. But yeah, the Gen 2, it's kind of a funny thing. It's they cut it off at the right time. They never did anything to that engine to make it compliant, so to speak, for emissions in terms of drop in compression or anything like that. Basically, the street with the hydraulic cam setup was unchanged, just for purposes of conversation, straight up until 71. Luke's asking, was the race Hemi an aluminum block or cast iron? The heads were aluminum. Oh, there he is. Mopar Man beat me to it. The heads were aluminum, but the block was iron. So getting back into the car. Going with the lighter weight accessory drive pulleys and all that other stuff. A lot of it had to do with just the inertia, though, that those things build up in between shifts. And this is kind of what I was getting at. Again, you've got all three of them weighing 3.7 pounds. I mean, you're getting eerily close to 4 pounds. But if you can imagine, spinning one of those things up to close to 14,000 RPM, and then at the shift, having that RPM drop down to 10,000 RPM, basically you're dumping 3,000 RPM, and that 3,000 RPM is, attached to that belt. It's going to try to either pull the belt, and it's going to kind of shock that crank pulley a little bit. And that's something that I don't want. I'm trying to have everything be a little bit easier on that whole drive system, lower pulley primarily, because it's not pinned. It may end up getting pinned at some point, but I'm again debating back and forth. At some point, if the car does get a bump and boost, which direction to go, and I'm leaning heavily towards Innovators West lower pulley and just leaving the stock upper pulley on the car, primarily because it's more or less a DA correction type of a modification in terms of making power. And I don't, and the argument, by the way, for upper pulleys is, well, you can always just swap out ratios. No, you can't. That's almost like a red herring type of a marketing strategy. Yeah, you can swap out the pulleys, but you're also going to need to be able to retune, number one, and number two, probably more to the point, if you live in lower altitudes like I do, there's some pulley ratios that you just do not want to mess with because of fuel quality, 93 octane, right? Number two, you start running real deep into the mine shaft air that we can get down here. And yeah, you can certainly run into a problem potentially if you combine, not a sketchy tune, because, we know who's doing the tune. It's be going through pipes performance. But it's that sketchy fuel quality that you got to watch out for. Now, what I will be doing is, either way I go, once the DA starts to drop, this thing's going to be living on a pretty consistent diet of kind of 3 octane and 100 octane, just to keep it on the 1047 on straight 93 octane Buc-ee's gasoline. So I kind of want to keep that trend up. I want to give the car every advantage that I can, given the parts that I already have, plus what I'm looking to put on the car coming into this fall and winter. I want to give it every opportunity that I can leading into January for the track rental that I'm going to be doing again. But at that track rental, I will have an unlocked PCM, and I will probably start to play with some tuning. In fact, I've already started putting together my transmission tune for the car. It's just still running on the unlocked PCM. Still running on the locked PCM. It does not have an unlocked PCM in the car yet. That might be coming. It's summertime. I can manage the car having a little bit of downtime right now. Let's see. Dollar Powers is checking out, saying, "Got to go to bed, Mr. B." Thank you for checking in, brother. Hope you have a great weekend coming up. Let's see. Mopar man saying, sorry, I thought you wrote heads. No, that we got that covered though. Yeah, the heads, the block is not aluminum. No, it is not. Dr. Div's asking, you ever check to see if that PCM I have will work? Can send it to HPT and then return it to you. Unlock Revlon and then have the factory PCM. If not, I'm going to unlock it for a spare. No, I haven't. I never did really check on that. I'm just going to, roll with the setup that I've got here. I appreciate that though. I don't think it will though. I think there's some proprietary stuff in the Hellcat ECU that will not allow for that, if I'm not mistaken. And then Dr. Div is asking, why not switch to E85? Fantastic question. So in looking at what it would take to swap the car over to E85, it's not that much realistically. I mean, all you're talking about is the twin pumps, which are the injected engineering twin pumps, and basically a set of 127-pound injectors or 1200cc injectors, mainly because I would want the overhead, not to mention that's what Alex likes to tune with, and so there you go. I do have the capability to swap back and forth between tunes, and I can make adjustments if I need to any tune that I've got to maximize it if I need to, which pretty much means that you can make whatever changes you need to satisfactorily scatter a lot of expensive parts all over the ground. But that being said, it's not that I don't like E85. I love me some E85, but at this power level, and at this boost level, I'm really not going to be able to take that much of an advantage of that E85. However, it would help to run E85 if I wanted to run a stock pulley combination as deep into the 10s or as high into the 9s as I can possibly get it, which may end up being the direction this car goes. However, and I keep saying it, but that would require rear gear, pumps, injectors, tuning, and everything else that would come with it. But I am very, very certain that I could get a high 9 out of this car. If not a high 9, certainly a very low 10 on E85 with an aggressive tune, but it would take some obnoxiously low density altitude conditions to get it to that point. Mopar Man saying, nice points with the pulley B. So many people are making mistakes with them. It's not hard to get 950 out of Hellcats. Have built one that dyed on 1150, which is his best yet. Man, I like it. You know, that's the thing. I mean, it's all these little things that start to come into play. And I like to, you know, they always say the devil's in the details and all this other stuff, but in a way it's true. You know, that just trying to maximize the package however I can, you know, regardless of, you know, how minor the upgrade is. If I see it more as a durability modification, I'm going to lean towards that first. And, you know, we've done that already with the diff brace, which I'm kind of on the fence on, to be honest with you, or fence with, I should be honest with you. Drive shaft for sure, durability mod, but you know, from there, where do you go? And you start to look at other things just to, you know, nitpick it, just start staring at it, kind of turn your head sideways a couple of times and go, oh yeah, is there an option for that? You know, is this something that, you know, maybe I should be looking into? And that's one of the things that I was looking at that I figured, yeah, I might want to take a look at that, as well as pinning the crank. Dr. Div saying, yep, probably so. That's just talking about a conversation on E85. Shawnee, Mopar Man and B were the early generation Gen 2 Hemi, 65, 66, 67. Technically it was 64. A little bit more stout than the later ones, or is that just a rumor? Well, it depends on what you're defining. I mean, when those engines were released, they were not street engines. I don't believe that the street Hemi wasn't released until 66, if memory serves me correctly. So by that definition, yeah, they were more stout because they were race applications, whether they were, you know, set up for drag racing or for NASCAR or what have you. Those particular engines would have been, you know, more specific to a racing application than any of the street Hemis. But as far as the race Hemi itself, no, it was they would have all basically fallen under the same umbrella at that point. Let's see. Mopar Man, oh, torque is sitting at 970. Nice. The build is strong. Just make sure when you get in that range of power, you deal with the trans, rear end, drive shaft, etc. That's the thing. You know, the toughest thing to convince somebody of, and this is something that I've always found to be true, is how do you build a car that makes 1,000 horsepower? Well, you build it from the back to the front. You don't just throw the power at the car without having provisions to manage that power. You never want to have a car that is unmanageable or unbalanced, whether it's, you know, you need to match your braking to your acceleration. You need to match the durability of your rear end components and your driveline components to the purpose that that vehicle is being built to. And it's interesting because, you know, and don't get me wrong, I mean, you can throw pulleys on these things, E85, what have you, send the thing on its way. It's not going to let go just pulling out of the driveway of the shop. Usually when it lets go is after some time has passed, after the car has been beaten on. That's when things get sketchy. But what you don't want to let leave the shop is something that is going to be unsafe. So again, before you start making that power, and let's say you have put the diff in the car, and let's say you have put, or you've got the upgraded drive shaft, and you've been smart about it and put the half shafts in it. The thing is, those stock half shafts have a nasty habit of lasting a long time. But anyway, getting back to it, while you're doing all of that, check everything, nut and bolt the whole car. Check your brake pads, check the rotors, check everything on that thing, because what people tend to forget, you know, it's always sexy to hear some big number. The other side of that is managing that number. And if something does go wrong or something gets a little bit out of sorts, where it absolutely can, ask me how I know, multiple occasions, at, you know, deep into triple digit speeds, you need to be able to rope that thing in as quickly as possible and manage it. And it needs to respond to your inputs the way that you are expecting it to respond. And if you've got weird stuff going on, that isn't going to happen. So tires, brakes, brake fluids, make sure everything is checked out before you start throwing power at it. Then once everything checks as safe, throw all the power in the world you want at it. Mopar Man saying, yes, they were a bit more stout. Indeed. Talking about the race engines. Let's see. Dr. Div saying, so why not make the switch? Those FIC 127s are one of the best things I've done. I'll agree with that. I like more aggressive tuning that can be done with the 0 knot. Great fuel, should be plentiful near you. Actually, it is. I have an E85 station literally right down the street from where I live. It would not be a problem to get E85, and it's, you know, fairly consistent from what I understand. A lot of racers here locally use that same fueling station. It's a Sunoco, obviously, down here anyway. A lot of guys are using it, no issues, but for me, I like being able to just get in the car and drive. Now, it's not to say that I may not make the switch, or at least have the option to have the switch later on, but in the meantime, we're going to run this thing on pump gas and have a nice conservative setup with the setup that it's got on the car now. And really what that amounts to is richening it up a little bit, adjusting the transmission to where the shift points are proper, basically not changing anything with torque management, and really not worrying too much about false knock with it. Just basically giving it what it needs to work the best that it can with the stock setup. And by the way, stock catalytic converters. Yes, we are still going to be running the stock catalytic converters because nobody else is doing it. And I think it's kind of cool to get out there and run mid to low tens with a freaking catalytic converter on the car. I mean, hell, the Demon's doing it. Why can't a Hellcat? Let's see. Mopar man say that many of those engines hit the streets as well. Yes, they did. So Fox is asking, if you can make your own car and can choose any motor, any trans, any chassis, any body, how would you build your car? Like, you know, Camaro chassis, Viper engine, and so on. Man, it would depend on what I would be doing with that thing. But, you know, you're asking kind of, it's an interesting question though. You know, how do you go about it? Well, if I'm building something like a road car and I could get away with it, where do you begin? I'd probably say GT40 chassis with a twin turbo LS setup with HP 90 automatic, you know, something along those lines, you know, if you can get away with it. Derek's asking, what are your thoughts on cowl hoods versus a true and functional Ram air hood, especially for IATs and more airflow? Again, it's going to be a little bit more combination specific, but let's say you're talking about a Mustang. Benefits to running a cowl hood on something like that would just be hood clearance for like Philonic spacers, or if you're running a 351, something along those lines, it just gives you that extra room. It also helps to get rid of some of the underhood heat. But again, it depends on how you're using it, because the cowl hood, technically that scoop is there to take advantage of a high pressure area at the windshield. There's a kind of a curving around effect there. It creates an eddy, right? It would be right here on the windshield. It creates an eddy like this. It's actually a high pressure zone right there. And that's what the engine would be sucking in, is that high pressure air there. That is a lot larger frontal area than what you're probably going to get at the front of the car. So in that respect, probably a little bit better in terms of cowl induction, and they look good too. But again, it just depends on how you're going to route everything and what your application is. But if it's me and I'm doing like a carbureted setup and I can, you know, I've got the fabricated inlet that shoots back towards the firewall, I'd use a cowl induction hood. If it's one of these things, I mean, you're kind of stuck with what you got. Mopar man saying, thanks for the back to front build thought, B. I see so many people come in with a beefy engine and stock transmission and a blown up rear end. My man, you know where I'm going with this. So the big issue with these Mopars, especially when we're talking about the 392 cars, is they're running an HP 70 automatic transmission, and on the initial look at that transmission, it's plenty for a 392. But once you start throwing power at it, that's when things are going to get a little bit sketchy. I really would love to see them, or would have loved to see them, run the HP90 transmission, and you can't tell me there's not enough money in the kitty for that. I'm building a lot of HP90s. But the reality is that you just don't see that. And you're right. You'll see a lot of guys with 392s and nitrous application, supercharger application, whatever the case might be. They'll throw the kitchen sink at that engine and not even think about either, you know, rear suspension or any suspension mods to begin with, transmission upgrades, or anything else that would have anything to do with durability. They just want that power number. They want to be able to get out there and just run the hell out of the car, and it just doesn't really work like that. Luke is saying, I'm thinking about putting a cam in my truck. I got the 4.8, 4-point grate, 238,000 miles. Would you recommend me doing that? The funny thing is about those LS motors is that they typically are doing pretty good regardless of mileage, but I would be a little bit suspect at that high of mileage. Would definitely want to make sure that, you know, if you were to do that, get the engine out of the truck, check the bores for taper, make sure that you know, everything is still correct and everything is going well with that engine before you start throwing a cam into it. You are going to have, you know, it's going to be more fun with that cam for sure. And 4.8s wake up nicely with a cam, but I'm not saying the mean. You know what? Screw it. Go ahead and go for it. I mean, what could possibly go wrong, right? I mean, if you're going to have to do a rebuild, you have to end up doing a rebuild anyway. Just make sure that you replace, you know, front engine accessory components while you're in there. You probably due for it at that kind of mileage anyway. Shawnee's asking, what's a better stroker kit for the 390 to 426 or 440? Talking about 392. I like the 426 mainly due to rod to stroke ratio. The 440 is not too terribly bad. The only downside to the 440 and to some extent the 392 as well is, man, you got to feed it. And that stock intake manifold, it just is not going to do as good of a job feeding that larger displacement as it does the 392. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, that when I'm pouring those intake manifolds, I spend so much time on the throat trying to reshape everything to where, you know, I've got a consistent, nice flow of air going into that plenum. The 426, but let me backwards real quick, and getting everything to be opened up, getting all the casting flash on the downward side of those intake runners. The problem is that you cannot get to the back side and to the top of those intake runners. Typically, that's not a problem though. They start out pretty big. They start out roughly about that big, and then they taper down as they're rolling through. But any other obstruction with any casting flash or anything like that, you just simply can't get to. Significantly better, but there's only so much you can do with a runner that really checks in to be about that long with when the long runner actuator is, or you know, your base level is being called up, and then once it goes into short runner, it's about like that. But it takes off about that much room or that much length on that runner. Again, you can get some good power out of them, but I don't know. Just be careful. I'd go 426. Johnny's saying, come on, Brian, long tube headers and high flow cats, go for it. Not for this thing, man. Mopar man saying, many more 426 builds. Most builders have that build down rock solid. That is true. And you know what? If long tubes and high flow cats worked on these cars, I'd say it would be worth it. The problem is that the high flow cats that come with those headers, they're really not high flow cats. I mean, they flow fine, don't get me wrong, provided you get the 200 cell metal substrate catalytic converters. And even then, they will do well to flow about as much as the stock catalytic converters do, mainly because the stock catalytic converters are about that big around, and even though they're 400 cell cats, there's a lot of cells in there to flow all of that exhaust. I mean, look at it from kind of a common sense point of view. You fire one of these things up and they're loud. There's not that much restriction in that catalytic converter, at least, you know, not the way that it used to be back in the day. You know, high flow cats, they're fine, but so far, you know, we've already proven that there's not this monster gain at the drag strip by having or not having catalytic converters. And that's not just with my car. My car's always had stock cats on it. What I'm looking at is a tuned car with cats and without, not showing any gain by pulling the catalytic converters off of that car. Surprising as that may be, that is a very true statement. So Fox is asking, basically, if you could build your perfect daily car you could have fun with on the weekends. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at it sitting right behind me. I mean, I have a ball with this thing, and, you know, yeah, I'd love to have a little bit less weight in it, but I also like the fact that it's roomy. And then you start getting into, you know, well, you know, am I going to be taking the car to a closed circuit? Am I going to be drag racing it? What all am I going to be doing with it? And I don't know. If you know what, if I could build the perfect car, it'd be an old Wagoneer with a Hellcat engine. That would be probably the closest you could get to perfect for me. Except brakes would have to be way upgraded. Let's see. Oh, Mopar man saying there is a great bigger build if you want to go either route. Just let me know. There are some things I want to tell you. Also, things to watch out for. Absolutely. And the Mopar man's also going on to say, I like your thoughts, Sean. The reason I said 426 is the amount of builds for 426. Even my less experienced guys can build it strong. Yep. They all have a lot of their own little tricks as well. Absolutely. Oh, Dr. Dibb brings up a good point. He says, and a built HP70 isn't cheap, especially after you cook fourth gear to nothing. The parts alone are expensive because I built my own, waiting for my custom 3500 install. And Mopar man saying, no, it's not. Costly suckers. Absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, again, it really kind of starts to get into the whole, you know, building the thing to where it is a solid, durable package across the board. And the other thing is this, trust me, if you don't know what's going to break, just throw power at it. The stuff will start breaking on its own, trust me. Mark's checking in. What's up, my brother from the great white north, saying, hey, brother, just wanted to say what's up. What's up, brother? Thank you for chiming in, my friend. Been a subscriber to this channel since the second or first week I was up and running. I think he was like subscriber number 6. Luke Rich is saying, a year ago I took the old spark plugs in my engine and the number 3 plug had oil and gas in the thread. Should I be worried? Nah, not really. That's really, well, what I would do is take a look at that injector. If you have oil and gas, what it sounds to me like you've got an injector that's got a terrible looking spray pattern, probably washing down the rings a little bit. You're getting some oil past the rings. And again, a little bit unburnt fuel because you've got a terrible looking spray pattern. That's probably what's going on with that. Not knowing how many miles are on it, but that is probably what's going on. It's not out of the realm of normalcy to see that with higher mileage engines, but typically it's across the board. Dr. Div saying, I'm out. B. Mason, enjoyed your show as always. Good night, sir. You have yourself an awesome one, brother. Shawnee is saying, if you pull cat over temp on the tune, will your stock cats be okay? No, 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 they will not. They will absolutely freaking melt. They will fry for sure. Mark saying, found you because of your Fox Body, the gateway drug video. Absolutely. Dr. Div saying, before I go, y'all hit that like button. Absolutely, guys. Yeah, I did a video. It was actually one of my earlier videos, and it was, you know, Fox Body's the gateway drug. My dad still has my 89 GT. He still gets out and rips that thing around. And yeah, that it absolutely is the gateway drug. And I mean, for a lot of us, that's what we all learn how to work on cars on. Fantastic platform to learn how to make something that goes fast. And for us back then, I mean, fast was running 12s. You know, by today's standards, you know, 12s are, you know, everything runs 12s, right? But back then, if you're running in the 12s, you had yourself a pretty fast, very respectable car on the street. If you were in the 11s, that was just unheard of. So, yeah. Oh, Mark's saying, still want to see footage of your dad's Fox. That may be coming here pretty soon. I need to run over there and fetch that car. Awesome car, though. 351 swap car. Keep ribbing him a little bit about that intake manifold that's on it. It's a 351 Lightning lower intake with the GT40 upper on there. F-cam and 1.7s. Luke Rich saying, when I pulled the number 3 spark plug, my heart skipped a few beats. It was the first time I've seen something like that. Yeah, we see them all the time. Also do a leak down test, compression check. You're going to want to do, at least do the bank and try to get an average of at least that one bank. But chances are it'll probably check out okay. Again, probably a little bit of leak down is probably going to be your lowest compression hole on that engine. Shawnee's saying 89, 5-liter, the best year. Tilt steering wheel, mass aerometer, 140 mile an hour speedometer. Absolutely. Mark P saying hood open, of course. Absolutely. F-cam power. Actually, F-cam and 1.7s was my favorite cam and lifter combination to run with a supercharger back in the day. That was a sweetheart of a package. Shiny's saying, I watched your 392. Does it live up to the legend again? You love the 392, but it seems like you have started to like the Hellcat stuff and the wide body stuff. What turns you around? Well, a couple of things. One was this car came up for sale, and it's a Hellcat, and it's some will say enough said at that point, right? But no, I mean I still do love the 392, and again, if I could have two cars in my garage, one would be a 392, Scat Pack Charger, or SRT Charger, and the other would be a Hellcat. Again, it's two completely different driving experiences. But as far as what changed my mind, I like the durability of a stock or a stock-ish Hellcat by comparison, to the 392. And it's not to say the 392 is not durable. In fact, quite the opposite. You really can get out there and have a lot of fun with a 392 and not worry about anything breaking or anything like that. My car had a ton of passes on it, and when I driver error, but when the trans let go, I got to looking at it and I was thinking, well, from a financial standpoint, I had my other truck and I had my car, and it was really more of a financial decision initially. That's when I started looking at the Hellcats, but then the exact car that I would have spec'd back in 2015 is this car, and I got to looking at it, the price was right, and I kind of jumped on it. So that's basically what turned me over to the Hellcats, or why I bought the Hellcat. But I've got to tell you that 392 is still always going to hold a special place in my heart, and it still to this day, to me, feels like a very special engine. And realistically, probably even taking into account Gen 1, Gen 2, because it brought that type of performance to the masses. I mean, look at the number of 392 cars that are out there, and then compare that to the number of street Hemis that were sold. A total number of street Hemis that were produced, somewhere around, I think the number's between 13 and 15,000, can't exactly remember. It's actually a lot more than you might think, but that's really how the numbers pan out. But that's also over the course of 6 to 7 model years. You'll have way more than that being produced in any one model year, close to 500 horsepower, and they're everywhere, and they work. They get fantastic fuel mileage, or at least for what they are, they get, the fuel economy is great, and they're bolted to arguably the best automatic transmission that's ever been released, at least in terms of actual performance. So can you nitpick them? Of course you can. You can nitpick anything. It's designed and engineered purpose, whole reason to live, that thing's actually doing real well. So it's kind of like having your cake and eating it too. You get all the torque you need down low, you get plenty of power up top, and it's enough motivating oomph to get, one of these 4,000-pound cars rolling and down a drag strip in less than 12 seconds in stock form. Definitely something to be said about that. Derek is saying, I have a Whippled S550. They make a true ram air hood that has the tunnel piece that attaches to the hood openings. Oh, yeah. And feeds the air directly to the cold air intake. Trying to see if that will help IATs. Yes, it will. As long as you're rolling, it'll help IATs for sure. Shawnee's checking out, saying, I've got to go. But tell me how the drag racing experience changes between 11.3 and your 392 and 10.5 in your Hellcat. Technically 10.4, but the difference. So here's the funny thing: the difference between the two is it's different for sure, but in terms of actual G-force that you feel when you're getting pushed back in the seat, the 392 for the first half of the track is kind of right there with the Hellcat. It's about half a second off the pace going through the 8th mile. And I get that half a second is a long time, but just in terms of seeing the cars run, they're not that far off. It's really on the back half of the track where the Hellcat is just steadily still marching away from that 392. So on the drag strip, there is a very significant difference. But it's not so far removed to where it's unfamiliar. In fact, I could take you out of a 392 car, put you into a Hellcat, and you may come away with the opinion that, man, that's a strong running car, but it's not. Again, it's not unfamiliar. It's not like it would freak you out, the difference. I will say that, and that's a very well sorted 392. But still stock cam versus a stock Hellcat, both on a tire. I've never been really underwhelmed with the Hellcat, but because of the way that the car is geared, you just don't feel that thrust the way you do with a 392 in first and second gear. The other thing is, though, taking it off the track and going to the street, the 392 is just snappier from a dig, and you can roll into the throttle pretty hard with a 392 car on a tire on the street, and the thing will just dead hook and take off. And you can basically run on the street what you run at the drag strip with a 392, whereas that's not going to be the case typically with a Hellcat, just because it's going to have more of a habit of lighting the tires up. So. Oh, Derek is saying on his setup, similar to the shaker hood on the Challengers. Yep. Mopar Man's asking, have you ever used Venom? Venom IS, I guess Venom is racing pistons and rods. No, I haven't. So did you like them? I love them. I use them in 3/4 of my big bills. No, Venolia. No, I haven't. All of the builds we've worked with have been Molnar pistons and rods for these cars. But no, haven't used those. Mark's asking, what car do you regret selling the most? Tough to answer. First car that comes to mind is my 93 SSP. But that's not necessarily first on the list. I regret the hell out of getting rid of my Lightning, especially my second Lightning. That one definitely comes up. Well, let me think about this for a minute. My 97 Viper also, kind of regret that. But I regret getting rid of them, but I don't really miss them nowadays. I do miss my 392 Challenger, though. Definitely miss that car for sure. But you know what? They all got me to this point now, so I can't really say that. I wish I had one of them back. If the question is which one do I wish I had back, it would be my Lightning. For sure, it would be my Lightning. I really screwed the pooch when I sold that truck. Let's see. Speed Freak's asking, good evening, B. Is it possible to have a 93 tune yet also have a race fuel tune, all with the same injectors? Absolutely. What's the largest size you can use on 93 octane? Well, I mean, the largest size we typically use, if you're talking about injectors, are 127s, but with the right data, all of them will work. Even with lower power levels, they work fine. You got to remember that these injectors will still offer fantastic looking spray patterns, and they work just great, just tooling down the road. At least the fuel injector connection injectors do. Let's see. But yeah, no, you can run 93 octane through, ID 1050s, fuel injector connection 127s. All of them work just fine, no matter how you go. Mopar Man saying, nice pistons you guys use. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Moeller stuff it's top notch, and it's very consistent too. That's the other thing. You do, weight to weight and everything else on those things, and they're actually all fairly close. Very close, in fact. Luke Richardson's asking, what engine did the Ford Lightning come with? The Ford Lightning came with the 5.4 liter Triton single overhead cam V8 with an Eaton M112 supercharger. And so to give you an idea what that engine is, it is a tall deck. If you want to look at it like this, it's a tall deck 4.6 liter, and it's got an undersquare setup where the bore is significantly smaller than the stroke. And it is basically it's a truck engine. And oddly enough, yeah, I know, right? It's in a truck, but it's the same basic block that came in the GT40, that 5.4 liter, except it's a 4 valve as opposed to 2 valve. But anyway, getting back to it, that that engine and that combination, it's like they tried everything they possibly could to make that thing. It's like that thing makes horsepower just as an afterthought. It makes a lot of torque down low, screams like a Banshee out to about 53, 5400 RPM, and then it's time to shift. But yeah, that's what they came with. Mark saying, those Lightnings were and are so badass. I know it's Mopar Chat Live, but I want a quick rundown of those two Lightnings if you want. Yeah, sure. The first Lightning was pretty sedate. Had a LFP throttle body, a canned Diablo tune, and that was about it. And then that truck, I got rid of that truck, ended up getting another one. Now that one had a Johnny Lightning ported supercharger, JLP throttle body, bass tune by Johnny Lightning that I actually went back through and completely redid that tune. Had my transmission tune on it. Let's see, long tube headers, Stifler's long bars. Let's see, what else? Was lowered GT500 hood insert and true leather seat covers. That truck was badass. That thing ran real. It never went to the drag strip, but it was a solid, 1170, 1150 truck though. Mopar Man saying, not a lot of big block older race cars, just wondering because vanilla are almost indestructible. Like talking with Don Garlitz one day, he was in Wisconsin, I asked him and he mentioned vanilla. Yeah, no, it's all third gen stuff at the shop for us. It's, third gen and, LS and, some Ford Coyote stuff, but that's really about it. Derek Sizemore saying, thanks for asking my questions, even though I'm not a Mustang. Hey, man, I love Mustangs. This is truly involved to a motor chat and much needed. No, man, I enjoy it. Ain't kidding me. I really do. Yeah, in fact, that's another one is that it's going to go from Mopar chat to motor chat. But yeah, no, I love Mustangs, man. And again, you can just get so much out of them, provided that you build the rest of the car to manage the power, you can. But again, it's not cheap. Everybody says, Mustangs, you can do this, that, or whatever to them, and it doesn't cost anything. Yeah, well, it does. And right, it certainly costs a pretty penny. Speed Freak's asking, when looking at used Hellcats at a dealer, any way to see or find out if the PCM was cracked, swapped, or if there was a tune in it? Well, the quick and easy way is if you've got HP Tuner software and you've got credits on there, you can actually plug into the ECU, which is what I did with this car. First time I drove the car, I had my computer with me and I had my cable with me, and I hooked into it and checked it out, see if I could actually write a tune to it, to see if it did have a tune, and still locked PCM. But that's really the only way you can find out. Every once in a while, you'll have like a card or something like that in the glove box that'll have something to the effect of, or you'll see it over the OBD2 port. It'll say aftermarket tune, do not reflash, or you'll have something in the glove box or something like that that may signify that. That's a little bit more rare, but the best way to find out is just to plug in and take a look, or have somebody around that knows how to do it. Just don't make the mistake of accidentally writing one of your tunes to it. Mark's saying, you love Mustangs, even mine? Absolutely, man. Got a cool looking build on the way, man. I like that. Luke's saying, I've seen some guys stuff a 6.8 V10 in those Lightnings. Don't know why you would do that. 5.4 is a good engine for that truck. Yeah, I wouldn't go with it. I would never do the V10 in that thing. That would be rough. Derek saying, remember the Rankin and Center Street days when a 9 or a 10-second car was most likely a trailer queen? Yeah, you would have seen me out there. So yeah, if you remember a 94 Mustang running around out there on a drag pack with a cowl hood with 96 rear lights, and yeah, you'd have seen me out there. Car made me some money out there. And my car was driven out there. That was a legit 9-second car, and I was still driving it out to Center Street and Rankin Road. Mark is asking, any luck finding clean 80s Rams? Not really. I mean, I've found a few, but they've been a little few and far between. Some of them have just been asking too much money for those trucks. And, to be honest with you, I just don't want to spend the kind of money that some of these guys are asking for them. But I have run across a few locally that, we'll see if they end up coming up for sale here in the fairly near future. I might be a player on. So we'll see. But so far, man, they're getting tougher and tougher to find. They're either in really great shape or they're in really bombed out shape. And it's just really hard to find those, those tweeners that are in there that are, it's a good deal. Somebody just wants to get rid of the truck. They're not trying to get an arm and a leg for it. That's really what I'm looking for. And they're just getting tougher and tougher to find. Mopar Man saying, throttle body will give you 25, 35 horsepower or so. It'll definitely give you torque, at least on these things. Jury's still out a little bit. It also depends on the pulley ratio that you're running, but you can pick up with a throttle body for sure. Just make sure you align it properly. Derek's asking, what color? If you're asking about the Lightning, it was Sonic Blue. Yeah, Mopar Man saying, I found one that was expensive and built, and the other one was rotted out. Yeah, they were a little kind of diametrically opposed. Another thing I wouldn't mind finding, a couple of different cars I'd like to do. Obviously a Wagoneer. Those are kind of weird. They're either ultra expensive or unbelievably and unbearably cheap. And although you can still get parts for the Wagoneer, they're kind of pricey if engine stuff starts to flake out. I would probably do like a 6-1 swap or something like that on that You know, if I were to get a Wagoneer, I'd just run it around for a little bit and then get it looking good and do a 6.1 Hemi swap and call it good. Do 6.1 with a nag one. Have some fun with that. Or just 6.1 bolted to the 727 and let her eat. Oh yeah, Derek saying, yeah, that kind of power on a street car was not that enjoyable back then. I was there every weekend. Also, Galveston and Texas City had some spots. Yeah, they did. So yeah, back then, I mean, you know, it took a lot to get a car to cover those types of numbers, and it just blows my mind that something stock now would have, you know, you take something like a stock Hellcat on a drag pack down there would have put a hurting on a lot of very fast, or at least for its day, fast cars back then. Derek Sizemore, what color was your Mustang? The Cobra was white. Hayden's checking in with Orange Crush. You missed my post a few weeks back. Come on, man. What'd you post, man? Did I pass it up or did I just not see it? Talk to me. Mopar man saying, my neighbor has one. Oh, man, I'll ask her. Does not drive it. Man, yeah, let me know. For sure. Slime Cuda, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Saying, hey, the chats, keep it up, brother. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the kind words as well. I appreciate that very much. Derek Sizemore is saying, were you friends with the Gypsies? No, didn't really hang out with them. They had Mustangs. Yes, they did. I was, yeah, that kind of, those were some good days, man. God, we used to have so much fun out there. Just getting out there and goofing off and raising hell. There's a spot over off a Telephone Road that was pretty sweet too. Mopar man saying, we have worked on it for the last 10 years at the shop. He took good care of her. Man, let me know. Shoot me some pics, man. I want to check it out. Luke's asking, what do you think of the Plymouth Barracuda? Depends on the year, actually. Saw one at the drag strip. Couldn't grab any traction, even on drag radials. I like 67, 60, I think it was 67, 68 Barracuda. I like those, a little bit more of a traditional body style on those. The Cudas are cool, but I don't know, man. The Cudas got, I mean, they're for good reason too. I mean, they're gorgeous cars. They got a lot of press, but you know, some of the cars leading up to the Cuda were also pretty sweet. But no, I love them. They're awesome cars. Hayden saying, Orange Crush here missed me a second time. That ain't right. Where you at in here, man? How am I passing you up? Hayden saying, missed it a few back. Where you at? Hold on, we're going to find you. Where you at? Come on, Hayden. Where you at? Man, I don't even see you in there. Did you post up or you just messing with me? Missed you a few back. Bro, where are you in here, dude? My dude, where are you at? I don't know, man. You got to hit that send button, brother. Mark saying, sounds like you had some cool spots to run in Texas, man. We had a lot of cool spots to run down here. You know, out Westheimer. Yes, he had Westheimer. You had Center Street. You had Telephone Road. You had, let's see, Rankin. You had, yeah, I remember some spots in Galveston, but I never ran Galveston. Had some really, really good spots out 288 South in the Manville area. Had a lot of cool spots. Was what you're thinking of. Near Telephone. That's it. Yep. Mopar man saying, B Mason just off. Back to me tomorrow evening with a price. Okay, cool. Let me know, man. Junior's asking, howdy, B. Mason, what's your best time on the quarter-mile strip? Depends on the car. So this thing is run a best of a 1047. I've run a string of 960s with my Mustang. The Viper would run 960s, 950s on nitrous. So that would be some of the faster ones. And then other cars that I've driven. Couple of big block, one big block Nova that would run high 8s, low 9s fairly regularly. I think that one, the best I ran in that car is a 907. Was it a 907 or not? Anyways, I think it was a 907. So in terms of what I've run, that's the fastest I've been. This thing again, 1040s, Vipers, and Mustangs, mid 9s. By the way, the Viper and Mustang were both manual transmission cars. James checking in saying, just bought me a 2019 Challenger GT. It snows for 6 months out here every year where I live, but nonetheless, very happy with the car. That would be a fun setup in the snow. Derek saying Galveston was at the seawall. I remember guys talking about the seawall deal. They were going to the very end of the seawall and running up, if I'm not mistaken. They would all park at that little spot where if this is the road, you've got that end where it kind of blocks out. I think they're all parking over there and then running back forward. I don't recall them ever having any issues with the cops either. They're saying, dang, I miss those days. Mopar Man saying, I'll send the pictures. Cool, man, I like it. Yeah, so, the funny thing is, back then, and that's the other part about the back then stuff with street racing and, the other idiotic stuff we used to do, the different roll racing and other stuff like that. The funny thing is, we never ran into any issues with law enforcement except for when they would just roll through and make sure nothing stupid was happening. But for the most part, they would leave you alone. The weird thing is that, though, as the import scene came in, that's really where the cops started. And, there were some other issues where, some bad stuff had happened and, law enforcement just started cracking down on it. But yeah, there was a point where you could actually get out and, have a ball and just not really have any issues. So yeah, back in the day, those were the days and all of that. But yeah, we were able to basically just get out and have fun and just enjoy these things. Oh yeah, Mopar Man saying 11s were big time street guys back in the late 70s. Absolutely. And Luke saying, I really like the Buick Grand National. I know they came with V6 engines, but those cars would fly. The funny thing about the Grand National, so the Grand National validated something that a lot of folks were kind of saying at the time, and that was that the V8 was going away, that boosted V6s were going to take their place, and here's proof of that, Grand National, or here's proof of that, Cyclone or Typhoon, and GM was really leading the way. Dodge was doing a really good job with 4-cylinder turbos, coming into the same argument, just from a little bit different point of view, so to speak. And again, it was a smaller engine, forced induction, working off of efficiencies. That is going to be what would take the place of the V8. All the while, at the time, Ford was looking at it going, well, we can just make a V8 more efficient and do just fine. And GM, of course, was doing the same. But it was just interesting that, yeah, it was a V6, but for some reason, even back then, it wasn't. This is a V6 turbo. And then it made sense. And for some reason, it was weird. V8 guys didn't look down on that V6, kind of the way that V8 guys will still look down on V6s today. I mean, granted, you're not going to look down on a GTR. And as far as 6-cylinders go in general, I mean, obviously, the 2JZ and, with Supra, Skyline and any of the other import stuff with a 6-cylinder, you know, you don't really look down on those per se, but this was America's V6 hot rod. And again, for some reason, V8 guys just, it was, what the hell was that freaking pterodactyl coming through here? It was just looked upon as just part of the family. And I mean, you would see these cars at the track. By the way, last time I was at the drag strip, or time before last, there was a guy with a Grand National there, and basically it had just been breathed on. The thing really didn't have a lot of work done to it, and that car was running 10, let's say 1080s at 123, 124 miles an hour. On the same night, this thing was running 1060s, 1070s. So, you know, not that far removed at like 128 miles an hour. For lack of a better way of putting it, running identical numbers to what my car was running. And again, in talking to the guy, that car really didn't have a whole lot done. He fired it up, wasn't loping, wasn't doing anything weird. It just sounded like a V6 at idle. So, yeah. Yeah, Derek's saying, yeah, Fast and Furious movie killed it. In a lot of areas it did, man. You know, we would see that kind of crap rolling around on the street and just, you know, roll your eyes going, man, what in the hell am I watching? But yeah, oh yeah, happened to happen a lot. Also, used to happen to watch those, okay, so when guys really started turning the wick up on Supras, there are some tricks to Supras that you've got to do to keep the thing held together in terms of it's oil control. And yeah, it was fairly common to see blown up Supras on the side of the road off Westheimer. Let's see. Slime Cuda is saying, I'm collecting parts to mod my Hellcat. Have an Innovators West lower pulley, off to a good start. I would like to install now since the engine is out of the car. Can I just install it, this one mod without a tune? No, you have to tune it with that mod. Full mods and tune later. No, sir. Well, I guess on one hand, you know, as long as you're not running any boost through it, but yeah, no, you've got to have it tuned with that pulley for sure. No question about it. No ifs, ands, or buts. You have to tune it with any other pulley ratio other than stock. Let me give you a story about a guy that brought a ZL1 into the shop. The guy put a smaller upper pulley on the car with no tune, thinking, oh, well, there's enough room in the tune to be able to handle this. And he blew it up. Brand new car. So Hellcat is no different in that respect. In fact, if you saw the fueling tables on a Hellcat, you would probably walk away from the experience cross-eyed. They are fairly lean from the factory. Timing is not super aggressive, but it's lean, and that's what gets most guys. So yeah, no, definitely tune it with that mod on the car, please. Let's see. Oh, Mark saying, I'll never forget riding a 97 Viper when they were new. My dad's friend had one, and I was like 12 at the time. And I'll never forget watching that guy rip through first, second, and third. I'll tell you what, yeah, I loved the Vipers, man. In fact, let's see, 96, 5, when the Gen 1 Viper was released, I was just a kid, man. I can't remember I think it was like 92. Anyway, yeah, crazy cars for the time, man. K. Joji's saying, pull your hoods up. Hell yeah. The thing about the Viper is that it's aptly named. The original, the Gen 1, didn't have any real understeer to speak of, and that was causing them to be real tail happy. So they engineered a little bit of understeer. Basically, it's just done with the camber in the front, and that made the cars, it was kind of went from one spectrum to the next, and it's not uncommon or it wasn't at the time anyway, for those cars to going around U-turns. Guys would not be used to the car. They'd try to fly around a U-turn or off ramps or on ramps that were curved. They try to hit those really hard, and I mean they're going through there damn near at full lock, and the car would just push. Yeah, those cars were creepy. Mark's saying the import scene, made the cops crack down up there too. Yeah, that kind of spelled the demise for being able to get out and do some, proper fun street racing. Mark's saying, don't forget, GM supercharged a ton of front-wheel drive V6 cars that were V8 rear-wheel drive just a generation prior. Absolutely. Well, that 3.8 went on to be a front-engine supercharged platform in the Regals, I believe. Maybe might have been I think it's the J platform for GM. And yeah, I mean, they proved themselves to be very durable, beat the hell out of them, and you can still get close to 300 horsepower out of them even in that setup with that small. I had a Eaton M90 supercharger, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Stephen Burke, what do you think is better for NA dig / organized street racing, 5.0 or 392? It's always going to be a tough race between the two. If you're talking stock for stock, I'd go with the Mopar. If you're allowed mods, you're going to need to go with that 5.0. But stock for stock, the Mopar on a tire versus the 5-liter on a tire, I'll say 6 to 7 times, and this is automatic for automatic, 6 to 7 times out of 10, the Mopar is going to win that race. My 392 never once lost a race to another NA Mustang, 18 and up, 10-speed auto, and I never ran one though on E85. But I can tell you, and I know those cars are significantly quicker, but pump gas for pump gas, again, my car is probably tuned and theirs wasn't, but I do know that they were on wheel and tire setup, so they were at least looking the part. And I never lost a race to one of those. But again, you start throwing mods into the mix, the Mustang's going to have an advantage there. Oh, Mopar Man saying about the cops, they would leave us alone on Friday and Saturdays. We would run from 11 to 2 a.m. Only time they would mess with us is if we were doing some big burnouts and causing a bunch of crap. Yeah, that's the way it was with us too. I mean, they didn't ever give us any headaches or any real issue. At least I never had any problems with them. Others may have, and every once in a while you'd hear about somebody getting popped and their car getting hauled off, but typically it's because they did something that really pissed off the cop. But no, we never really ran into any problems back then. And then later on, really once we started hearing about scenes getting hot, we would kind of move on to other areas, and then after a while, screw it, it's not worth it. And the car started getting faster too. And, we started doing other extremely stupid things going down the street. Again, and I've said this before, the roll racing thing that we used to do was 100 to 200. Guys go 40 to 160, and I'm just going, that's adorable. That's cute. But yeah, we would do some really dumb stuff, and we had some really fast cars, and we had them set up to be able to cover that type of mile an hour also. So again, well, some of them came that way from the factory. The Porsches were very stable at high speed. Derek's saying, oh, Marco killed it, raced the gypsies and smoked and drove his car from Chicago, he said. So he says anyway. Yeah, it's funny how legends keep growing and growing and growing. It's like the older we get and the fatter we get, the bigger our legends were. The old saying, the older I get, the better I was. So, Mopar Man saying, other than that, cops let us be. Some would sit and watch us for a few. We used to actually have cops do that with us too. So, especially the guys out in the county, they really didn't care. And usually there weren't that many of us out there. And the only thing that would tip them off that anything was going on is the cop might have been somebody's cousin or brother, or the brother of somebody that somebody might have been dating or something like that. He was caught wind that the races were going to be on, and there might be 15 or 20 cars show up, and they just show up to see what was going on. but there was always wreckers ready to scoop you up though. That was the other. It was actually kind of cool. Typically somebody knew somebody that if you needed to, if something bad happened or if you needed to get, you know, hauled off, it was just times were different then. I'm not saying it was necessarily better because now I do all of my racing at the drag strip. I don't really play much at all on the street, but you know, but once cars really started getting faster and, you know, we were getting older and kind of moving into other areas, if you want to look at it that way, that's when, you know, we all started going, yeah, this has been cool for, you know, it was cool for about 3 years once we got to that level, but then it was like, no, we got to cut this crap out. Team Mopar saying, what's up, B? Starting my email tuning tomorrow. All dyno shops in the state bailed or don't tune Hemis. Use an HP Tuner Pro kit. Best way to do it. Best way to do it. Just data log, man. There's nothing more important than solid data when we're talking about tuning. Mopar man saying, I like the 392. It beat just as many 5.0s as it's lost to and more. The stock 392 wins. And then you say to get a Greeby, the 392 is a great engine. Put that in a car that's 3,000 pounds or so and it would rip. Absolutely. And that's something that, I mean, damn guys, you know, that the 6.1 that I drove with the NAG one and that 62 D100 truck was a flippin' riot. And you got to remember that the 6.1 versus the 5.7, the VVT 5.7, guy, there's not that much of a difference in power between those two engines, and that truck freaking ripped. I mean, and if you're asking, well, how much? Okay, well, the 6.1 tune will put down, let's say 360 on a good day, a really good day on that Mustang dyno. Its equivalent 5.7 VVT engine will put down 330, 340, somewhere around in there. So yeah, I mean, I would love either one of those engines in a properly weighted muscle car, you know, 3,500 pounds or so. Yeah, that thing would absolutely rip like you wouldn't believe. Derek saying, I had a 13-second Pontiac GTP. Cool car, by the way. 3.8 supercharged. Spent all my broke college students' money on that car. Smaller pulley, cold air, and torque converter. Yep. Saying slow was getting smoked by LS1s. Yeah, but they were fun, though. Saying, yes, never had problems with the cops back then. I'm sure I saw you around a lot. Probably did. I had a lot more hair back then, too. Mark saying, I race on snow in the winter with my truck. Hell yeah, y'all do. It's freaking awesome, brother. Slime Code is saying, at what wheel horsepower level does the 262 outperform or make more sense than the 309? Talking about durability, absolutely. I have access to a 309 from my Charger Hellcat, but can't decide if I should do it or not. If the car is stock, I say go for it. From what I've seen personally, it does make a difference. Where I would say it would be better to go with the 262. Okay. Y'all all know Racer X. He runs a 309 gear in that Charger. I don't think that his car would benefit from a 262. I think his car is like the perfect setup for his weight. That being said, I think that once you get to about that level, so on a Mustang dyno making 800 horsepower, Dyno Jet you're making 850 to 880 horsepower, somewhere around that number you need to start considering going back to that 262 gear. You're gonna probably, and if you're like, and that'll be pulleys, fuel system, E85, the whole bit. Once you start getting more past that, you know, we're talking instead of a 275 upper, you're running a 265 with a 10% lower, or you're going even more aggressive, 255. That's probably when I would start looking at that 262. mainly because getting the car out of the hole at that point, first gear really does become more or less useless. If you ever watch Racer X's videos, his first gear really only seems to last for like that long. I would say even at his power level, the 262 would not be a bad idea, but that thing seems to work so well with a 309, I would have to leave it alone. But that, in my personal opinion, that's when I would start looking to make that switch. By the way, his car is a flippin' riot to drive. Lone Wolf Customs, what up, B? What up, Lone? What you doing? Derek saying Marco's super vids were still on YouTube. He had an 8-second super back then. He was the only one from Chicago that beat everyone. Well, you had him and Peter. Peter had the white non-target here in town, and that was a legit low 9-second car that I'm not sure that he lost too many races with that car. I actually tried to buy that from him once. Slime Cute is asking, will you be racing on a highway or driving more? Good question for that too. Good point. Team Mopar, when are you going to tint those windows? Did you get those new brake pads on yet? As far as tinting the windows, if I ever get around to it. And as far as the brake pads, yes. And I did a driving impressions video. And they're good. Check that one out. I think I posted it up. Yeah, I did post it up. They're good. Yeah, again, yeah, they're not. The initial bite is not as good as stock. But I've done. Let me think about this. I've done back to back hard stops with that car from speeds of 120-ish miles an hour. Actually, well, not really hard stops at the drag strip from well over 130, but on the street in Mexico from 120 down to 70, from 80 down to like 50, from 70 down to 50, 70 down to 40. But I did quite a few back to back hard stops and didn't really notice a lot of fade. Now, all of that being said, you can tell a slight difference, but not so much of a difference where it just kind of, you go, oh man, I don't like these. I don't know if there was a formulation change at some point. I know, and what I mean by that is some of the guys had been complaining about the brake pads from a while back, saying I don't like them. They glazed over or what have you, and it's kind of hard to tell. I've actually got a, I did, but all that being said though, I was very meticulous with the bedding in procedure too. So did that have something to do with it? Maybe. But yeah, so far I actually really like them, and the wheels stay clean, which for me is really the most important thing, just right after the performance. Brake dust mod faux show. Mark's checking out, say good night, Brian. Starting back on my roof at 6 a.m. Good night, Mopar Chat Live fam. Good night, Mark. Have fun. Yeah, I was checking out those shots, man. I have been in your shoes before, brother, and it is not fun. Enjoy, my brother. Thank you for hanging out with us too, by the way. Stephen Burke saying, I can't decide between a 5-liter or a 392. I have driven fast Mustang, Foxes, and Cobras, but the Challenger just gives me a hellish feel. Man, I got to tell you something. Damn. So in a perfect world, you'd have one of each, because they are both completely different driving experiences. I love that snappy feel that the 392s have. The Mustang just doesn't have it. I mean, maybe you might get that with a 355 gear with a performance pack, but I never really got the sense that the car was ever really accelerating. Although it's not boring, it just carries the gear for what seems like forever, and that's fantastic. I mean, the car is accelerating at a lower G rate, but for a significantly longer period of time, you're going to, have this, passing effect, but, or at least you would think that it does, but damn, just driving the thing, it just felt so clinical and so precise to a fault. And don't get me, I love Mustangs. I'm a big Mustang fan. In fact, I'm a huge Mustang fan, but it just didn't offer the feel that I was hoping for. So again, go with a car with a 355 gear. Probably be a different story. Mopar man saying on a stock car, go with a 309. Absolutely. If you're driving it a lot on the highway, a lot of power, you may want to keep the 262. Yep. You know what's funny is, Racer X's car, when I was delivering his car to him, that's about a 4-hour-ish drive. And there's this, there's kind of a funny story behind that. But at 74 miles an hour on E85, I was averaging 19.6 miles per gallon for fuel economy. And if you know anything about E85, you know that number is obscene how good it was. But yeah, I mean, it's with a 309 gear, and this is kind of puttering on down the road. Anything more than that, though, the fuel economy would dump. But yeah, that car rips. Very fast car, very well sorted car. Slime Cute is saying, Mopar man, he's saying it will be more for drag racing, probably around 8 to 850 tire horsepower level. Keep your stock gear at that power level. Racer X's car is proven to be practically bomb proof with that setup. However, I think if you're talking 8 to 850, especially if that's on a Mustang dyno, you're going to want to stick with the stock gear. Oh, and then Mopar man saying, if you're talking about the Mustang versus Mopar, if you're going to keep it stock or just a tune or a slight build, I'd go the 392 for sure. The Challenger is a nice driving car. Comfortable, bigger, looks great, and is quick. The 5.0 is a build car. It really is. It's really a tuner car. Great blank slate, but unfortunately not a lot to write home about in stock form. The Mopar is a fantastic vehicle as delivered. You can, throw little sprinkles on it and get a little bit more dash out of it, but the reality is that there's only so much left on the bone, whereas the Mustang, again, just has a higher, has a higher level you can take it to. Brian's checking in saying, hey, bud, I'm about to pull the trigger on getting a manual Hellcat and trading my 392 8-speed. Since you swapped, do you miss the 392? Yes, I do. And do you think the resale on the manual will be less? Thank you. Yes, it will be less. In fact, depending on the market that you're in, it can be significantly less. You're looking at, so to give you an idea, the automatic upgrade cost is like $1,400. But on resale, you're seeing the same exact car with a manual go for $3,000 to $4,000 less. I've seen manual Hellcats, low mileage cars selling for $43,000 and $44,000. If that gives you any idea, this one I was able to get for $48,000. It was listing at $52,000. So yeah, they do command a much lower number. And if you get that thing, look into putting that 392 gear in that car. I think you will certainly thank yourself for it. They are a lot of fun to drive. One thing's for sure with that car. That thing on a drag strip is not a lot of fun to get out of the hole. You really have to play with the launch, which eats up a clutch, just because the gear ratios are just so freaking long-winded and long-legged with those cars. But on the street, they are a lot of fun, and you do still get that great muscle car feel with those things. So, but to answer the question, yeah, I do miss my 392. There are times where I'd love to have another one, just because they're so snappy. I'd pull the intake, port the intake, fast man throttle body, throw a cat delete on the thing with a tune, and call it good. They're just so snappy. They're fun. They're just so perky to drive. That's the reason why you buy the Mopar. It's just that initial pop of torque, that initial sound when you light the thing off. That's really what drives the appeal of that vehicle. Mopar Man saying 19 miles per gallon on E85. Yes, actually 19.6. And it said anybody but you, I would say you're nuts. So here's the funny thing. The whole point of driving, I turned that whole trip into a big video game. And I had, so I got out of Houston, and that fuel economy started coming up, and I'm being real careful, just barely accelerating on the downhill side, barely rolling off the throttle on the uphill side, just doing everything I could to extract maximum fuel economy out of this thing. And then Paul calls me, Racer X gives me a shout, and he goes, hey, how does it feel on a highway pull? And I said, dude, don't. I said, you're going to ruin my fuel economy number. And I told him, I said, at the time it was coming up on 19.4 miles per gallon. He's like, no way. And I'm going, yeah, totally. So, but I told him, I said, dude, I'm doing everything I can to extract as much as I can out of it. So he goes, well, let me know how it's running. I said, all right, cool. Basically did a watt hit on the car and, ran it up to a speed, and it completely wrecked my fuel economy video game, but I was able to get it back up, and then the final average was 19.6, I believe. Mopar Man saying, yep, keep your stock sure be right as usual. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Let's see. Mopar is asking, this is a fun question. Who's your money on? 6.1 Jeep SRT stock versus my 5.7 8-speed Jeep Grand Cherokee, 392 intake, throttle body, 392 cam, 392 fuel injectors, full exhaust, and a tune. You go with a 5.7 on that one. Midwest Mopars, how's it going? What's your opinion on an E85 setup on a 392? Man, I'll tell you what, you can pick up torque down low. They are snappy. They are strong as hell at mid-range, but you just won't be able to flow enough air with that intake manifold to fully take advantage of the extra fuel mass that you need to feed that Hemi with on E85. So I like the swap. The only downside is that once you make the commitment to the swap, you're on E85 permanently unless you've got the provisions to be able to switch back and forth. But all that being said, I really like the E85 and 392 combination. But again, look to pick up more torque down low and more mid-range than horsepower. Let's see. Team Mopar saying those Jeeps are lighter. Look, anything with that 8-speed is where my money goes on that one. Brian saying, thank you so much for the advice. I think you just saved me a lot of money. Yeah, I'm not good for sales. I really love my 16 SRT. I've been following from the beginning. Great channel and appreciate your knowledge. Yep, thank you very much. And again, yeah, and look at it like this. I mean, I used to go sniping after Hellcats with my SRT 392. That car with a tune and a tire, transmission tune, was so strong, 0 to 60, 0 to 70, 0 to 80, that from a dig, unless the Hellcat had an experienced driver and was on drag radials, that Hellcat didn't stand a chance. And I've actually gone back with my car fairly recently, and I'm able to match my 0 to 60 times with my 392 with this car. No surprise there, you might say, because of the power numbers, but if you were to line the two up and my eyeballs are the imaginary 60 mile an hour line that the two cars are going, that 392 would be way up here with this Hellcat playing catch up. I had so much seat time with that car that launching it even on the street was just like taking another step on a walk. So Mopar Man saying, Midwest Mopars, how goes it? Long time no see. Hey, TU's in the house. Everybody say hi to TU, saying late but glad I made it to the live. Thank you, sir. Glad you made it in. Luke saying, think my truck gets 21 miles per gallon on the highway. Anything in double digits fuel mileage wise is okay with me. That's about what my work truck gets. My work truck will regularly knock down an average of at least 20 and change, 20 and a half really, on highway mileage. I'm still surprised by that. 400 horsepower, 5.7 liter, getting 20 miles per gallon on the freeway in a truck. That just blows my mind. Team Mopar is checking out, saying good night, B. Love the chats. Good night, brother. Mopar Man's got it here too, saying they have a kit you can buy anywhere. Some use it, some don't. It's basically a beaker. You put 10 cc's of water in it, depending on how the setup is, and then fill the rest of it up with fuel, or just dip it in your tank, or not your gas tank, but like in a whatever you filled it up with. Just, I don't know, fill the thing up with the rest of it with E85 and shake it. The water will draw all the ethanol out, and then what remains is the fuel in that little test beaker thing, and wherever it sits, wherever that bubble falls down into, that's your actual fuel content. Show Me Mopar is checking in and saying, what up, B? Got the flex, got the shades, got the fist bump, saying, keep hitting that speed bag, man. Oh yeah. Y'all ever come of Mega Mind B Mason aftermarket intake for 392? Inquiring minds want to know. Got the fist bump. Yeah, if y'all haven't seen it, I posted a cool down set. I just getting back into the gym, and I'd done ended up doing 12 rounds on the heavy bag. I'm still feeling it for sure. Been a while since I got back into it. Knuckles are still popping like crazy. But again, just trying to get back at it. Been taking some time off and getting fat, and it shows. So yeah, did 12 rounds, did some truncated rounds though. I wasn't doing 3, 4, or 5 minutes. I was doing 2 minutes, 50 seconds with a minute and 10-second intervals for rest. Did 2 sets of 2 minutes on the speed bag just to get things going. And then I filmed my very last cool down set. I did three 1-minute cool down sets on the speed bag. I filmed my very last one, and everything, my arms felt like they both weighed 60 pounds apiece, and I'm just trying to get through that minute, and my left arm, it just was not working. Anyway, if you haven't seen the video, you'll see it, and I'm just kind of just trudging along with the speed bag, and that one hurt. I'd never been so happy to get off of a freaking speed bag in my life. Yeah, aftermarket intake, man, I wish I could put one together. I'm trying to work. LOD may be coming out with one, so fingers crossed they can get off a dead center and start making that intake soon. Somebody had mentioned that either MSD or FA, I think it was FAST, was going to start looking into making a Hemi intake as well. A little homework assignment there, but that's a possibility that's coming up as well as an alternative. TU saying, for me, the 392 is a 0 to 60 beast, but the Hellcat is a 0 to 100 monster. Yeah, I mean, the 392 is so difficult to mess with on the street. Now, again, on a prepared track, it's a whole different story, man. I mean, it's almost a completely different language at that point. But no, TU's right. 0 to 60, any properly set up 392 is going to give anything that it rolls across a fit 0 to 60. I mean, hell, it was nothing for me to rip off 3.7 or 3.8 second 0 to 60s with my heavy SRT 392. It's running 3.6s on the street with the drag pack in kind of crappy weather. Guys, we are coming up over 2 hours. I'm gonna have to check out here pretty soon. Let's see. Oh, Midwest is saying, I'd love an E85 build with long tube headers, catless mids, different intake manifold, and a dyno tune. I want a big, badass NA build. Absolutely. Go with a different cam on that thing, too. Luke Richards saying 21 miles per gallon on a 4.8, or in your case 5.7 is awesome. Yeah, it's crazy because it keeps surprising me, that truck. I don't know. Capion saying, what are your thoughts on a 390 gear for an 8 scat pack? That is a bad idea. 3.7 is all but useless in those cars, but if you have a larger wheel and tire setup, it actually ends up working out pretty well. But 390 is definitely overkill with the size of the wheels and tires that are on that thing. Mopar Man is asking, are you racing the Scat Pack a lot? Where do you do most of your driving, highway or around town? I think he's checking in with one of the other guys. Say Midwest. I feel like the 309 is perfect. They can barely hook up to begin with anything shorter just would spin consistently. Oh yeah, absolutely. 309 is a great gear. I like. My thing with 309 is it's not as perfect as what a 331 gear would be in that car. 331, 327, they can do it. Come on, Mopar, are you listening out there? Mopar Man saying, B Mason will answer you right with this. Absolutely, I try to. Cavion saying mostly street use. Yeah, go with 309 gear. Stick with stock gear. If it's mostly street use, 309, if you just absolutely feel the need to throw cash at it, go with a 370 out of a Hellcat. 6-speed manual Hellcat, by the way. Mopar Man saying you should not go that 390. Yeah, no, for sure. Mopar's Midwest Mopar saying thanks a lot. Have a good night. Brian is asking, when you tuned your 392, did you have to change the computer? Also, does it affect the warranty? It does affect the warranty. I only unlocked my stock computer. Kept on saying thank you. Mopar Man saying 331. Absolutely, man. That is the gear. When I did the math, that 331 was the absolute perfect gear for a 392. Why they don't make it is driving me nuts. Well, guys, it is coming up on a little over 2 hours. I want to thank all of y'all for hanging out with me. Mopar Man, always good to see you. Thank everybody out there that was able to check in and hang out with me tonight. Thanks for being part of the family. I hope you guys have a fantastic Friday. It's the weekend. What more can you ask for? But again, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me, and I will check y'all on the next one. Got the Slime Kid is the last one in with the thumbs